and welcome to everybody on Cloud Fitness. So in today's video of Python series, we are going to continue our tutorial from the list in Python part 1 to the part 2. So in the previous part, we have discussed about what exactly a list is. We discussed about few functions that we can use with the list. We discussed about the positive and the negative indexing in the list. We discussed about the multi-dimensional list. So these are the few things that we discussed. So we will continue this particular session on list in today's session as well. So let's move on to the PyCharm editor that we were using till now in our previous video. So this is the list.py that we created as part of our previous video. Now I'm going to create a new Python file and I'm going to name it as list02 to maintain the continuity. Also, I'm going to just copy the list from here. So let me just simply copy the list that we have, because for today as well, we would want to, use a list to apply multiple functions on top of it. So now when we talk about this particular list, we have already seen multiple, ways to work with the list. But now I'm going to show you how we can actually, add a data or add an element to a list. So when I say add an element to a list, I already told you that the lists are mutable. You can change the list. So if you have a basket, I've been giving the same example. So if you have a basket, you have apple, you have orange, you have spinach, you have grapes in that. And if you want to add, let's say potato to that, so you can add that, or if you want to remove spinach from that, you can actually do that. So that is basically addition or removal of element from the list. So is that possible? Yes, it is possible. So for that, you can simply go ahead and use the function on your list. So we have the list named as my list, and there you can simply use the function which is called append. Now in this append function, you just need to provide the element that you want to add. So let's say I say element that, I'm just writing it as a string element that we want to append or add. So the moment I do that and I try to reprint my list, right now you will see that this element gets added to the list. So the moment I ran it, you can actually see that this element got added to the list. Now remember that this particular element always gets added at the end of the list. So whenever you use append, it will get added at the end of the list. Now we have already talked about indexing in our previous video, right? So if I go to the previous list.py file, right, so here we already talked about indexing. So I do recommend watching that video in case you haven't. So now in the case you want to add, let's say you want to add banana between apple and the grapes, right? So apple is at index 0, grapes is at index 1. So right, so now at index 1 you basically want banana. Can you do that? Yes, you can do that. How you can do that? You can do it using the function called as insert. So using this insert function, what you can do is you first need to provide in the index at which you want to add the element. So let's say 1, right, because I want to add banana after apple, right? And then you can simply type in the element that you want to add. So now if I do this and I again print my list, you will actually see the output over here. You can actually see that banana got added between apple and grapes at the index 1, right? So this is how you can use both append and index function. Append is used to add a function, add an element in the end, and insert is used to add an element at a particular index that you specify. Right now, let's say you want to add, now you just think that can you use append to add a list to a list, right? So for example, till now what you have done using this append function, we are just adding a string element at the end. Now instead of this string element, what if I want to add a list? Can I do that? Yes, you can do that. So let's say I create a list. Let's say list name is list02, and let's say in that list I say 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, like few numbers, right? Now what I can say, my list, which was my actual list, dot append what I can simply put in my list name over here, and then I can again reprint my list. So when I actually run this, you will actually see what happened over here, right? My list got added over here. So if you look at very closely, you will actually see that this was my previous list, right? So using my list.append of list 2, right, I wanted list 2 to get appended in my list, in my initial list. So what happened, these elements got added as a list over here. So this is nothing but this is the multi-dimensional list that we talked about in our previous video. So now let's say I don't want to add these multiple elements as a list, right? What if I want to add multiple elements, just as simple elements, because here this whole list becomes an element, right? We discussed this earlier. Now let's say I don't want to add them as a list, I want to add multiple elements at once. So can we do that? Yes, you can do that. You can do it using extend function. Let's say my list, right, dot extend. You can simply use your extend function, and in this extend function, in the square brackets, just type in any variables that you want to add. So let's say you want to add w, comma x, then again let's say l. I'm just putting in the random data, again t. Now if I want to print my list again, can I do that? Now let me print the list again, and you will see that these elements got added. Multiple elements can get added, as elements using extend function. If you use append function and you pass in the list, what will happen is the list will get added as an element itself. So you will get list as an element, but if you use extend, you will get each and every word or each and every element from the list appended to your primary lists, like this, right? So this 1 2 3 4 5 6 is coming from the append, w x l t is coming from the extend. So these are the two functions which you can actually use. Now let's say you have this list already, my list. Now let's say you want to reverse your list, right? So t you want to bring at an index 0, and apple you want to bring it to the last. So basically if you want to reverse this list, can you do that? You can simply say my list dot reverse, and when you say this my list dot reverse, right, what happens is your list gets reversed. And now if I say print my list, what is going to happen? And let me run it. So now you can see that your list gets reversed. So there are multiple ways to reverse it as well, but right now I'm showing you some inbuilt functions which comes very handy when you're actually working. So these are all real-time things which are actually very useful, right? So this is how you can reverse a list. Now if you want to remove an element from your list, so what you can do, you can type in the list name and then you can say remove. Now when you say remove, just type in the value you want to remove, right? So let's say I want to remove let's say apple, right, from my list. Now when I say that and I again try to print the list, right, what will happen? So let's see how my list look like. So now you can see that apple has been removed from my list. So this is how you can actually use the remove word as well, in your list, right? Now similarly there is something called as pop as well. Now remove, if you want to specifically remove an element, just type in that element inside the remove and that element will get removed, right? But now let's say I want to use pop. Now pop is also something, pop is also basically a function which is used to remove your element from the list. So now let me use pop just like that. So I'll actually show you what exactly it is. So if you see here, what I'm trying to do, I am simply trying to use pop, right? Pop on this particular list, right, till grapes banana. Now if I run it, what will happen is now banana will also get removed, right? So what happens is whenever you use pop, right, automatically if you do not put anything inside it, what will happen? Automatically your last element will get removed. Whatever your last element is there in the list, it will get removed. So here it is banana, so banana got removed. Now if you do want to remove an element from a particular index, then also you can use pop. So if I say my list.pop and inside that pop I put an index, the index we discussed. So for example, I'm just giving an example. I'm using 4 here. So 0th index is T, L is 1, X is 2, W is 3, and this particular list is 4. So the moment I say my list.pop 4 and then I try to print the list, you will see that the 4th element got removed. It got popped out, right? So remove is actually used when you put in a particular element which you want to remove. Pop, if you use without any index, it will remove the last element. In case you use pop with the index, it will just remove that particular index value from your list. So this is all about, these are the maximum functions that we use with list, right? So I tried to cover maximum of the functions which we can use with list, but yes, there are enormous number of functions. I have covered the important ones over here. So I hope you like this video and you understand, you know, this concept of list. Do let me know in the comment section. So there are multiple things related to list. You have list slicing as well, which I'm going to cover in a separate video itself, right, later on. So this is all about list. We are going to use list. I'm going to write a Python program as well using the list. So I hope you are liking this series, and do let me know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for being till here. But do remember to like, share and subscribe my channel.